Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling a really important topic. We're drawing insights from James Crowder's book, The Unbroken Spirit, Healing Emotional Trauma and Reclaiming Your Life After an Abusive Relationship.
Right. And we've got excerpts you, our listeners, send in the disclaimer, table of contents, intro, and the first 5 chapters.
Yeah, exactly. So our mission today is really to get to the heart of understanding emotional abuse and, crucially, those very first steps towards healing.
It's quite striking how many people go through emotional abuse without maybe fully naming it or understanding just how deep the impact can be.
Totally.
So this deep dive is aimed at bringing some clarity, validating those experiences, and, offering a bit of a roadmap for the early stages of recovery.
Yes, a roadmap. I like that. So we'll be covering some key areas. First up, defining what emotional abuse actually is.
Crucial first step.
Then looking at the traumatic effects, the wounds it leaves. After that, we'll talk about safety, prioritizing it through boundaries, no contact, that kind of thing.
Absolutely vital.
We'll also touch on the emotional roller coaster afterwards, the grief involved.
Which is complex. Very complex.
And finally, we want to unpack that really confusing thing, trauma bonds.
Why it's so hard to walk away sometimes.
Okay, let's just dive right in then. Chapter 1 starts with the basics. What exactly is emotional abuse?
Well, the book defines it sometimes called psychological abuse as a pattern. That's key. Not just isolated incidents, right?
Right, a pattern.
It's a pattern of behavior designed specifically to control, to manipulate, to undermine someone's self-worth, and ultimately to demean them.
And it's different from physical abuse because the weapons are different.
Exactly. It uses words, actions, even neglect, withholding things to attack your thoughts, your feelings, how you see the world, your sense of self, your core.
Those invisible wounds the book talks about, so insidious. And it shows up in a lot of different ways. The book lists some common forms. Maybe we can walk through a few, starting with verbal assault.
Sure. Verbal assault is, the constant criticism, the yelling, name-calling, mocking, belittling someone's intelligence, looks, abilities, anything, really.
Designed to make you feel small.
Yeah, inadequate. Like
Yeah.
you're never good enough. It just chips away at you.
And then there's gaslighting. People talk about this more now, thankfully, but it's still vital to understand.
Oh, absolutely. Gaslighting is this really nasty manipulation where the abuser makes you doubt your own memory, your perception, even your sanity.
How do they do that?
Well, I might deny things happen, twist facts, tell you you're too sensitive or imagining things or just plain crazy when you react normally to their bad behavior.
Wow.
It fundamentally erodes your trust in your own reality, makes you feel like you can't trust yourself.
It's like they're trying to rewrite your reality. Okay, another key element is control. How does that differ from just, normal relationship disagreements?
Good question. This goes way beyond disagreements. We're talking about one person dictating things like who you can see, where you go, what you wear.
Finances, too. Access to phones.
Yes, exactly. Controlling finances, demanding access to your phone, your emails, social media. It's all about limiting your autonomy, making you dependent.
And that dependence often gets worse through isolation, right? That's another tactic.
Definitely. Isolation is very deliberate. The abuser works to cut you off from your support system, friends, family.
Why?
To increase your dependence on them. They might badmouth your loved ones, create conflict, make it hard to see people. So you become more reliant on the abuser for everything. Connection, validation.
Creates a closed loop.
Yeah, scary.
And then intimidation and threats, even without physical violence.
Oh, absolutely. Intimidation can be menacing looks, gestures, smashing things near you. It creates this atmosphere of fear.
And threats.
Veiled threats, direct threats against you, your kids, pets, even threats of self-harm by the abuser to manipulate you. It's all about instilling fear to get compliance.
It sounds terrifying. The book also mentions humiliation and public shaming.
Yeah, that's about deliberately embarrassing you in front of others, sharing private stuff, making jokes at your expense. It just chips away at your dignity.
And emotional neglect. That sounds quiet or maybe harder to spot.
It can be subtle, yeah. It's things like withholding affection or attention as punishment. The silent treatment is a classic example.
Oh, right.
Or just constantly dismissing your feelings, being emotionally unavailable, you feel unseen, unheard.
Like you don't matter. And then blame and scapegoating. Always someone else's fault.
Always. Shifting responsibility onto you.
Yeah.
Making you feel guilty for their behavior or things totally outside your control.
Exhausting. Finally, the book talks about unpredictability and chaos, that feeling of walking on eggshells.
Exactly. constant tension. You never know what will set them off. It keeps you in the state of high anxiety, always trying to manage their moods.
It really paints a picture of how multifaceted this is and the
Yeah.
effects. And the book talks about the erosion of self-worth.
Yeah, that constant criticism just wears you down. You start to feel worthless, unlovable.
And you might even start believing it yourself, internalizing it.
That's the internalized abuse part, yes.
Yeah.
The abuser's critical voice becomes your own inner critic, even after you leave. It's really damaging.
And the distortion of reality from gaslighting.
It makes it so hard to trust your own judgment, your perception. You feel destabilized, unsure of what's real.
Which leads to loss of trust, obviously, not just in the abuser, but maybe others, yourself.
Absolutely. Trust in others takes a huge hit. But maybe even more damaging is losing trust in your own intuition, your ability to judge situations or people accurately.
And the mental health impacts. The book connects emotional abuse to some serious issues.
Very strong links, yes. Anxiety, depression, C-PTSD, complex PTSD.
C-PTSD.
Yeah, it's related to prolonged, repeated trauma like in these relationships. Also, substance abuse can be a way people try to cope, and tragically, even suicidal thoughts. It takes a massive toll.
Which brings us to emotional trauma itself. It's more than just being upset, isn't it?
Much more.
Mm-hmm.
The book explains it as the psychological and emotional response to that prolonged experience of manipulation, control, degradation. It overwhelms your coping mechanisms.
The relationship itself becomes the danger zone.
Exactly. So your system is constantly stuck in high alert, hypervigilant, or maybe shut down completely as a way to survive. That sustained assault causes the trauma.
And a really key message in this first chapter is validation.
Oh, profoundly important. The book stresses it was real. It was not your fault. Your feelings are valid.
Why is that so critical?
Because emotional abuse is often minimized, denied by the abuser, or maybe even downplayed by society or people around you. Gaslighting makes you doubt yourself. So hearing clearly that your pain is legitimate, that's a huge, necessary first step toward healing.
Believing it wasn't your fault. That's huge. Okay, so you start to recognize it, understand the impact. What's next? Chapter 2 is about safety and boundaries right after leaving or deciding to leave.
Yes, a really critical pivot point. Once you see the reality, safety becomes priority number one. Healing can't really start if you still feel unsafe or threatened.
And physical safety comes first, especially if you're still living there, just left, or fear retaliation.
Absolutely paramount.
Yeah.
The book advises making a safety plan, like identifying safe places to go, packing an emergency bag, documents, meds, cash, keys.
Got it.
Memorizing numbers, maybe looking into legal options like restraining orders if that's appropriate and safe for you. And definitely using resources like domestic violence hotlines or shelters. They offer support, planning help, maybe even housing.
Okay, physical safety first, then emotional safety. The book talks a lot about no contact, NC.
Yes, no contact, cutting off all communication. Calls, texts, emails, social media, through third parties, blocking them everywhere.
Why is that so crucial?
It stops the abuse immediately. It gives you the space you desperately need to start healing. It helps break that trauma bond cycle we'll talk about later, and it's a massive step in reclaiming your power.
Makes sense. But the book says it's really hard to do.
Incredibly hard. Trauma bonds are powerful. You might feel guilty, scared. You might even miss the person in confusing ways.
So what helps?
Constantly reminding yourself why you're doing it.
Yeah.
For your safety, your sanity, your future, prioritizing your long-term well-being over those intense, immediate, conflicting feelings.
What if no contact isn't possible? Like if you share kids.
Right. Then the book suggests low contact, LC, keep communication minimal, brief, factual, only about necessary topics like kids' logistics.
How do you manage that?
Use neutral platforms like co-parenting apps. Avoid personal stuff, arguments, emotional pleas. The book mentions the gray rock technique.
Gray rock.
Yeah, basically being as unresponsive and boring as possible. Don't give them anything emotional to latch on to or react to.
Interesting. Okay, beyond that, digital safety is huge now too.
Absolutely critical. Block them everywhere online, phone, email, social media. Make your profiles private. Check all your privacy settings.
Passwords too.
Definitely change passwords, especially if they knew them. Use strong, unique ones. Two-factor authentication is good. Be careful about mutual friends passing info. Maybe limit what you share for a while. And check location sharing on your phone and apps.
Good point. And finally, setting initial boundaries with other people, even supportive ones.
Yeah, you're vulnerable right after leaving. It's okay to limit how much you talk about it. You can say, I'm not ready to talk about that, or I'd prefer not to discuss them.
You can also ask for specific support.
Yes. Can we just watch a movie? Or can you just listen without giving advice right now? and gently correct people if they minimize it or blame you. It was more serious than it looked, or I'm just focusing on recovery now.
Setting those boundaries protects your energy. Okay, so safety is established. Chapter 3 moves into acknowledging the trauma and allowing grief.
Right. This is where the deeper emotional work starts to surface. The crisis might be lessening, but the reality of what you endured hits harder. The survival adrenaline fades, and the trauma and grief come up.
The book talks about the fingerprints of trauma, those psychological and physical marks.
Yeah, and it's so important to normalize these. Things like intrusive thoughts, flashbacks, nightmares, feeling hypervigilant, constantly on edge, jumpy.
Avoidance, too.
Yes, avoiding people, places, thoughts that remind you of the abuse. Negative changes in mood, feeling hopeless, guilty, ashamed, losing interest in things.
Numbness, feeling detached.
Emotional numbness or dissociation. Feeling foggy, like you're watching yourself. It's a coping mechanism, but it's a trauma sign.
Anxiety, panic attacks.
Very common. Overwhelming fear, racing heart, can't breathe. Depression too, sadness, fatigue, sleep appetite changes.
And physical symptoms?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Headaches, stomach issues, chronic pain, muscle tension, trauma gets stored in the body, difficulty concentrating, memory problems too. The key is these are normal reactions to an abnormal situation. You're not broken or crazy.
So important to hear. And the grief. The book says it's about more than just missing the person.
Oh, it's so multi-layered. You might grieve the relationship itself, even the good moments or the potential you saw. You grieve the person you thought they were.
The future you imagined.
Yes, the future you lost. You grieve the loss of self, your identity, your confidence, the loss of trust, not just in others, but in your own judgment.
Loss of safety.
That fundamental sense of security being violated, loss of time, energy invested, maybe loss of community or friends if the abuse isolated you. It's a profound, wide-ranging loss.
Wow. So how do you deal with all that? The book says give yourself permission to feel.
Exactly. Allow all the emotions, sadness, anger, confusion, relief, fear, numbness, guilt, longing. No judgment. They're all valid.
Don't suppress it.
Resist trying to just be strong. Acknowledge and express feelings safely. Be patient and kind to yourself. Grief comes in waves. Some days are brutal. Self-compassion is key.
What about feeling conflicted, like relief and sadness?
That's totally normal. Ambivalence is common, especially with trauma bonds. Feeling angry but still missing them. It's part of the messy process.
Okay, permission to feel. That leads into chapter 4, about getting professional support, finding a therapist.
Right. While friends and family are vital, the book really emphasizes why therapy is often essential for trauma recovery.
Why is it different?
A therapist provides a safe, confidential, non-judgmental space. They understand abuse dynamics, they validate your reality after gaslighting. They're trained in specific techniques to process trauma safely.
They offer objectivity.
Yes, they can help you see patterns you might miss. They teach coping skills, managing triggers, regulating emotions, setting boundaries. They guide you through processing memories without re-traumatizing you. And they can help address underlying issues, like maybe codependency patterns.
Makes sense. What kinds of therapy does the book suggest? It mentions trauma-informed care first.
Yeah, TIRI isn't a specific method, but an overall approach. It prioritizes safety, trust, collaboration, empowerment. You want a therapist who is trauma-informed.
Okay. And specific types, like EMDR.
Eye movement, desensitization and reprocessing. Uses bilateral stimulation, like eye movements, while focusing on traumatic memories. Helps the brain reprocess them so they're less charged. Very effective for PTSD.
Somatic experiencing, that sounds body-focused.
It is. Focuses on physical sensations related to trauma. Helps release trapped energy in the nervous system. Complete self-protective responses that got stuck.
What about CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy?
CBT helps identify and challenge negative thought patterns. There's also trauma-focused CBT, TFCBT, adapted specifically for trauma survivors.
DBT, dialectical behavior therapy.
Good for intense emotions, impulsivity, relationship difficulties stemming from trauma. Teaches mindfulness, distress tolerance, emotion regulation, interpersonal skills.
And one more, internal family systems, IFS.
IFS views the mind as having different parts. Therapy helps you understand and heal these parts, led by your core self, which is seen as inherently wise.
Lots of options. How do you find the right therapist? The book stresses the connection matters.
Hugely important. First, identify your needs. Trauma specialist. Abuse recovery. Maybe a specific modality like EMDR resonates.
Where do you look?
Use reputable directories. Psychology Today, Good Therapy. Specific ones for EMDR or SE. Domestic violence organizations often have referrals.
And ask questions.
Yes. Most offer free brief consultations. Ask, are you trauma-informed? Experience with emotional abuse. What approaches do you use? How do you handle traumatic memories? Fees, insurance, sliding scale.
Trust your gut.
Absolutely. How do you feel talking to them? Heard, respected, safe. Is there rapport? It's okay if the first one isn't the right fit. Keep looking.
What about barriers? Cost? Stigma?
Acknowledge them. Cost. Look for sliding scale. Community clinics, online options. Stigma. Remind yourself seeking help is strength and investment. Fear. Totally normal. Start small. Make the call. It's worth it.
Finding that therapeutic anchor sounds crucial. Okay, last chapter for today, chapter 5. Trauma bonds. Why leaving is so hard.
Ah, yes, trauma bonds. So confusing, so painful. It's this strong emotional attachment formed between the abuser and the abused.
How does it form?
Through that cycle of abuse, mixed with positive reinforcement, moments of kindness, apologies, affection, promises. The book calls it like an addiction to the abuser, rooted in survival instincts and brain chemistry, like Stockholm Syndrome in relationships.
And the cycle of abuse fuels this. Tension building, incident, reconciliation.
Exactly. That intermittent reinforcement, the unpredictability of abuse and reward is key. Tension builds, you're anxious, then the abuse happens.
Then the honeymoon phase.
Right. Apologies, often fake, gifts, promises to change hoovering, they call it sometimes. They turn charming again. Then a period of calm. This cycle reinforces hope, strengthens the bond. The reward of the honeymoon phase gives relief, creating this powerful craving for connection, even if it's fleeting and unhealthy.
And brain chemicals are involved.
Big time. Cortisol, stress hormone, floods you during tension and abuse. Then dopamine, reward chemical, hits during reconciliation, reinforcing the attachment. Oxytocin, bonding hormone, can be released during closeness, strengthening the tie further.
Wow, it creates this push-pull. You depend on them for relief from the distress they cause?
Precisely. It's a very powerful, confusing dynamic.
So what are some signs you might be in a trauma bond?
Difficulty leaving despite knowing it's bad, intense emotional pain or withdrawal when trying, no contact, defending or making excuses for the abuser.
Forgetting the bad stuff, focusing on the good.
Yes, minimizing or forgetting the abuse, focusing only on the good times, feeling loyal despite everything, believing you can fix them. Intense longing, even with fear, returning multiple times after trying to leave.
Those are really clear signs. So how do you break free? The book says it's possible, but hard.
Very possible. First step, acknowledge it, name it. This is a trauma bond, not healthy love. That reduces self-blame.
And then no contact.
Strict no contact or low contact, if necessary, is critical. Continued contact just feeds the bond, keeps the cycle going. Every interaction reinforces it.
What else?
Focus on the reality of the abuse. When longing hits, redirect your thoughts. Maybe keep a private list or journal of incidents if safe to read when you feel weak.
Therapy helps here too.
Essential. A trauma-informed therapist helps you understand the dynamics, process the trauma, develop detachment strategies, build your support system. People who validate you, encourage healing, not reconciliation.
Self-care.
Crucial. Nurture yourself. It regulates your nervous system, builds self-worth outside the relationship, and patience. Loads of self-compassion. It takes time. It's not linear. Acknowledge setbacks without judgment. Recommit to freedom.
Understanding trauma bonds really helps make sense of those confusing feelings that keep people stuck. It's a survival response.
Exactly. It's not weakness. Recognizing it is empowering. It helps you take the steps needed to break free and reclaim your life.
So, wrapping up our deep dive today into these first chapters of The Unbroken Spirit, we've defined emotional abuse, looked at its impact.
The traumatic effects.
Talked about those vital first steps.
Right.
Safety, boundaries, no contact.
Prioritizing physical, emotional, digital safety.
Acknowledge the trauma and the really complex grief involved.
And the importance of allowing yourself to feel it all.
Discuss why professional support is so often key and the different types of therapy.
Finding that right therapeutic anchor.
And finally, unpacked the confusing dynamics of trauma bonds and how to start breaking free.
Yeah, understanding why leaving can feel so incredibly hard.
And for you listening, remember this is just the beginning of the healing journey. Future deep dives could explore rebuilding self-esteem,
Setting healthy boundaries in all relationships.
managing triggers, the mind-body connection in trauma.
Rebuilding trust, finding joy again, lots more to explore.
But for today, the final thought we want to leave you with is this. Recognizing the dynamics of emotional abuse, understanding trauma bonds, that itself is a huge, courageous first step.
Absolutely.
You are definitely not alone in this. And healing truly is possible.
It absolutely is.
Maybe think about what resonated most with you today and what further exploration might help your personal journey. Until next time, take very good care.